System. Hey! In the dark world of consciousness, a light curtain suddenly appeared. On the light curtain, one by one, square and correct Chinese characters were revealed immediately. Name, Mo Chiu. Sex, male. Age, 14 years old. Height, about 120 centimeters. Weight, ominous. Talent, advanced literacy and hyphenation, beginners in music, introduction to painting, intermediate in physics, chemistry. Hey! In reality, Mo Chiu sighed, and when he thought about it, the literacy and hyphenation became a beginner. Once again, the painting became a master. But there is no use for eggs. His system has its own appearance, and the things exposed on it can be modified at will. But it will not affect reality. Even the words revealed on it are not required to be added by themselves, rather than revealed by themselves. I want you to use this system. Lamented, and the light curtain was retracted, revealing a world of consciousness that looked like pitch black, but actually had a faint starlight. But like the light curtain, the dim starlight gleaming here, I don't know what it is. It's been half a month since I came into this world. I can't ask for it today. The system hasn't played any role. Opened his eyes, and he was in a big shop with 8 or 9 people sleeping on it, still more than enough. Is a cold and hard straw mat. I don't know how long it has been used. There are burrs protruding in many places, and there are people lying on it. I don't know what's filled in the quilt on her body. On top of his head, there are neatly arranged wooden rafters, on which the cobwebs are airtight, obviously lacking in cleaning. What lingers around, except for the strong sweat of the man, is the smell of herbs that lasts for a long time. Crossed. Even though half a month has passed, I still feel a little dazed, not to return to my senses for a long time. Get up! Hurry up, get up! Accompanied by the roar, it was an extremely rude sound of pushing the door. The simple door panel swayed under the push of someone coming, seeming to fall to the ground at any time. Get up, get up! Hearing the sound, a person next to him rolled and got up instantly, putting on short brown and straw sandals quickly. Mo Chiu also lifted the quilt, followed the example, and walked out of the house amidst shouts. At this time, the sky was faintly bright, and the outside of the house was still a little dim, only the sound of crowing from around. This is the backyard of Chingsang Pharmacy. In addition to a few people, there are many medicinal materials that need to be processed. A big man walks from one side with his hands on his back. The figure is 2 meters high, giving a kind of invisible coercion. Especially Micaiah's stunted teenager, he curled up subconsciously. The newcomers yesterday, all stand up. Dahan waved his hand back and said, first sign the apprenticeship, and talk about the others slowly. A young man of about 20 years old behind him immediately walked out with a wooden tray. There is a wad of paper in the wooden tray, which is obviously the so-called apprentice shape. 5 of the 9 people walked up, followed the instructions, and signed and drawn on the paper one by one. When Mo Chiu wrote his name, the young man and the big man gave him a subconscious glance. Said it was signed and drawn, but in fact, several people were drawn by handprints, but he was the only one who signed. In other words, others are illiterate, and Micaiah can at least write his own name. The little fat man next to him flashed his eyes back and forth, looking at his companion in surprise. During this period, Mo Chiu seemed to have changed himself. Is also a beggar in the city, but he managed to clean up himself, and even found today's errand. Even took himself to the pharmacy. Although the apprentice is difficult, at least he won't be hungry, and having a place to live is much better than a beggar who has a meal without a meal. The big man waved his hand to let the young man put away his apprenticeship, looked at everyone again, and said, you sign the apprentice, you are your own person, but I will explain in advance what you will do in the next 3 years. First of all, he carried his hands on his back again, and said, the master has something to do, and the disciples do what they do. Whether it is serving tea, pouring water, or making the bed, keep your eyes open and smart. Don't blame me for not reminding you. If the masters are upset, I can kick you out at any time. In addition, within 3 years, if you can't learn from the master, you have to leave too. So, do you understand? Clear. A few new apprentices hurriedly responded, and one of them even said, the master has something to do, and the disciple takes care of it. Learn your skills and stay. Don't ask to turn your head, recognize the person who spoke, Sun Yokai, a child from a family in the city, and seems to be relatives in charge of the pharmacy. Yet. The big man nodded in satisfaction and continued, the masters of our Chingsang pharmacy are all famous in the city. It is your blessing to be able to follow your side and learn skills. Don't talk too much, even if you learn 1 or 2 points, it's more than enough to be a local native doctor. But don't worry, you should familiarize yourself with the environment and identify the medicinal materials. It will take a year or a half before you are qualified to touch the prescription. Yes. Everyone should be again. In addition, it is your food, clothing, housing, and transportation. The big man glanced at the 5 people and said, clothes, 1 set of winter clothes and 2 sets of singles every year, shoes depend on the situation, sometimes I will use them more frequently when I go to the mountains to collect medicine. At this point, he couldn't help frowning. It was because a few apprentices went into the mountain to collect medicines and met with bandits some time ago, and suffered heavy losses. In addition, the pharmacy has been doing a good job recently, so that new apprentices were recruited. I hope this batch can survive, otherwise it will take so long to cultivate, and it will all be bleached. But this time it was not bad. Yu reading www.yuuganshu.com has a literate person who can directly identify medicinal materials, leaving a lot of work. Eat, 2 meals a day, eat with the guys here, take care of your fullness, and eat as much as you can. Guru. The little fat man rolled his throat and touched his stomach subconsciously. Even Mikhail swallowed. For the past half-month, he has been a beggar, but he has had enough of the taste of not having enough food and being hungry. You already know where you live. Ro. The big man paused, his face sank, and said, the pharmacy is not on the street, and no unruly people are allowed. I'll just say it once, you will remember it for me. Everyone lied and hurriedly stood up straight. The big man said, when the master and uncle brothers are present, if they do not speak, as apprentices, they must not take the initiative to speak, wait on the sidelines and listen to the teachings. When the masters ask questions, they must answer softly, not arrogantly, but respectfully. Be polite, do you understand? Clear. Several people drank. Okay. The big man nodded and continued, in addition to taking care of your food, clothing, and housing, if the masters are in a good mood, they will also give some pocket money, not much, but save a little. During the holidays, the pharmacy will also have money rewards. This is where we are. Other places don't have this benefit. Ahem. At this time, a soft cough sounded from behind. The big man closed his face when he heard the sound, and hurriedly bowed back and stepped aside. Master Qin, you are here. The visitor nodded slightly, came to the front slowly, and said, who was that literate yesterday? Come out and let me see. At the northwest corner of the backyard of the Chingsang pharmacy, there is a stone trough filled with water for people to cleanse their face. Mo stood in front of the stone trough, looking down at the figure reflected in the water, and couldn't help being a little dazed. The figure in the water, with withered yellow hair forks, tousled hair, a yellow-faced skinny figure, plus the tattered clothes, is not much different from the beggars on the street. Only a pair of big eyes is still a god. Squeezed his face against the surface of the water, his pain made him grin, and then he came back to wash his hands and cleansing his face. When everything was cleaned up, I didn't want to settle down, turned and walked towards the back of the pharmacy. At this time, the sky was shining, and in addition to the apprentices in the pharmacy, the masters and guys had also rushed there. There were people coming and going in the back hall, and from time to time someone looked at Mo Chu a few times. Can be favored by Master Qin in the pharmacy, this is not everyone's luck. Master Qin. Don't ask for a cup of hot tea, and respectfully handed it to the person sitting at the head, please have tea. This is not considered an apprenticeship, but it also means that after entering Master Qin's door, you can listen and learn art. It takes a year at the earliest for ordinary apprentices to achieve this step. During this period, the master has to test the apprentice's character, loyalty, and suitability for entry into this industry. Needs a certain foundation of literacy and hyphenation. Makayu is precisely because of the knowledge of words, and the pharmacy is short of people at this time, which saves a lot of effort. Master Qin is about 30 or 40 years old. He has a little grey hair on his temples. He has a clean appearance and elegant temperament. He is dressed in a green shirt and cloth boots. He has a strong herbal smell all over his body. He nodded towards Makayu, took the tea, and took a sip of the tea casually. Then pointed to one person next to him, this is your brother Wei. In the next period of time, you will follow him to familiarize yourself with the medicinal materials and properties. Yes. Mo Chu nodded and looked at Brother Wei. I have seen Brother Wei. Senior Brother Wei is about 20 years old, he is not tall and has a hunchback. He is looking back and forth at Makayu with his small eyes. With a kind of condescending meaning. He belongs to an apprentice who has already given a teacher, and he can make independent consultations. He is currently employed by the Qingsang Pharmacy. He has not only monthly money but also extra rewards given by patients. Yet. Senior Brother Wei said, what's your name? How old are you? Where is your home? Are there relatives in the city? This brain problem blurted out, his tone was blunt, and it seemed a little unkind. Returned to Senior Brother Wei. Mo Chu handed over his hands and said, my name is Mo Chu. I am 14 years old this year. My hometown is in Wancheng. I was hit by a disaster in my early years and fled here. I have no relatives. 14 years old. Senior Brother Wei frowned, it's a bit short and too skinny. He doesn't care about Mo Chu's family situation, he is not much better if he wants to come, but his age is a bit unexpected. Originally thought he was only in his early 10 years old, but he was already 14. This body is too thin. But studying medicine is not practicing martial arts, and the physical requirements are not high, as long as the person is smart and has a flexible mind. The thought turned, Brother Wei bowed his head and asked Master Qin in a low voice, Master, should I start teaching from the regulations on febrile diseases? No. Master Qin shook his head lightly, raised his hand and rubbed his temples, his face was tired and said, teach him directly to know the medicinal materials and usage of Jinshuang medicine, and to make up later if there is time for medical treatment. Yes. Brother Wei nodded, feeling clear. It seems that the pharmacy is too short of manpower, and there is no time to teach medicine step by step. Hope this kid can use it at the top. Father. While talking, one person hopped in from the door, holding Master Qin's wrist. I heard that there is a new apprentice, is this him? This is a pretty woman, about 15 or 16, wearing a green dress with a pink belt on her waist. Was blinking his big bright eyes to look back and forth at Mo Chu. He didn't have a condescending attitude, but was mostly curious. When the woman entered, Master Qin's face immediately smiled, and even Senior Brother Wei's expression was much more soothed. It's him. Master Qin straightened up from the chair, stretched his waist, and said, it's getting late, Weian, please wait for him to recognize the medicinal materials first, and help organize the medicine cabinet. Qingrong, come with me to your uncle's house. Yes. The two should be. Senior Brother Wei bowed, gestured to Mo Chu, and went to the aisle leading to the medicine hall. Keep up. Yes. Mo Chu looked back and hurriedly followed. Qingnang Pharmacy is one of the best pharmacies in the city, but there are 5 doctors who sit in the clinic all the year round. Brother Wei doesn't count. He has only been a teacher for a few years, and he is qualified for independent consultation, but he is not yet qualified to be a pharmacy doctor. Today's sitting doctor is Mr. Han, who is good at bone setting and acupuncture. Of course, besides Mr. Han, there are other guys and apprentices busy here. Come here. Walking to the front of a row of medicine kitchens, Brother Wei opened a medicine bucket, took out a dark object from it, and said directly, "This thing is called blood scorpion. It is the thing that oozes out of the lin tree fruit. It has the effects of invigorating blood and relieving pain, removing blood stasis and stopping bleeding, and promoting muscles and sores. It is generally used for traumatic injuries, traumatic bleeding, and abdominal congestion. This thing can't be used too much, just a little bit at a time, otherwise it will not save lives and will harm people." Said, he rubbed some powder from the top and put it on the medicated oil-wrapped paper. This. Opened a medicine bucket again. Brother Wei continued to speak regardless of whether he remembered it or not. It's called yellow wax, some people call it beeswax. It is made of honey and has the effect of relieving muscles and relieving sores. It is generally used for ulcers, wounds, burns, scalds, and this type of skin trauma. It is better if it is used in combination with the blood scorpion in front of it. Yellow wax lives up to its name, just like a yellow candle, similar to solidified fat, but also has a sweet smell. Mo Chu, who has not eaten yet, swallowed subconsciously before nodding his head uncontrollably. This one. Senior Brother Wei opened a medicine bucket again, and before he could speak, he was interrupted by a loud noise. "Doctor! Doctor! Look at my second brother!" A group of people rushed into the pharmacy. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. A few big guys in front of them, panic anxious, rushed to Han Lao. If they had no scruples, they would be forced to pull. Among the crowd, one person was lying on a wooden frame covered in blood, his arms twisted and his body trembling from time to time. "Don't worry." Han Lao looked straight, stretched out his hand to comfort everyone, and walked to the wounded in front of him. Looking at his age, Han Lao is afraid that he is over 100 years old, but he is more flexible in his movements than young people. "Now, pull your sleeves and stretch your fingers, and hold the pulse of the injured person." There was a silence in the field. A group of big guys held their breath, their eyes fixed on Old Han's expression. Brother Wei also stopped his movements and looked over there. The qi and blood are poor, the internal organs are disordered, and the anger is very strange. "This is..." Old Han looked up, his face solemn, "Have an internal injury." "Exactly." A big man nodded and said, "Second brother was sneak attacked by the third gear of the Black Tiger Hall, and hit him with the palm of a tiger. If not, would he be defeated?" "Doctor, is our second brother's injury serious?" "Don't worry, no matter how much money you spend, as long as the second brother can be cured, our quartet faction is willing to contribute. Let's rank." Han Lao clasped his fists and arched his hands, standing up and saying, "This is not a question of silver or silver. The old man is not good at diagnosing and treating internal injuries. Master Qin or Master Lei need to take care of these injuries. Then tell them to come out." The big man yelled anxiously. "Don't worry." Old Han said, waving his hand at the guy behind him, "Go and call Master Qin for a visit." "Yes." The man should be, and hurried to the back hall. Not far away, Mo Chu looked dazed. "Internal injury? Gang? This world seems to be different from what I thought." Thinking about it carefully, there are indeed shadows such as gangs of the rivers and lakes, snitches flying high and high in the memory. But these, Mo Chu had originally thought it was just the original imagination, rumors, and did not take it seriously. The so-called gangs, in his view, are just some gangsters, and they cannot be on the stage. It seems that it may not be so. Tiger palms, internal injuries, gangs. Obviously, this world is different from what he had previously imagined. Not long after, footsteps in the back hall sounded, and then a few figures hurried over. One of them had grey hair, wrinkled face, panting step by step, and was helped into the medicine hall. Seeing the visitor, Han Lao's complexion immediately changed and he hurriedly greeted him, "Senior Su, why did you come out?" "Qin Ting has gone to see his senior, and there is no one else in the pharmacy who can treat the internal injuries well. Since I can still move, I have to come out and have a look." The old man took a breath and waved his hand weakly, "Take me to the wounded." "Yes." Old Han should be, bowing forward, and at the same time whispered, "Senior, watch your steps. I'm not so confused yet." The old man rolled his eyes angrily and moved to the injured person. In the nervous expression of a big man, he held down the pulse of the second brother, closed his eyes and meditated. After a moment, the old man opened his eyes and nodded gently, "Send it to the backyard wing, I will give him injections, prepare medicated bath and solid rime pill, I will use it later." Looked at the big guys at the same time and said, "Don't worry, although he was hurt by palm strength, but fortunately, he has a strong physique and can resist most of his strength, and he can still be saved." All the big guys were overjoyed when they heard the words, and they immediately became excited and clasped their fists in a row, "Thanks to Mr. Su. Su Lao Miao hand magic needle, hanging pot to help the world, well-deserved reputation. Su Lao's life-saving grace, our quartet will never forget, and the necessary medical fees will be sent." "Okay, okay." The old man waved his hand impatiently, and was obviously accustomed to such compliments, "Go with one person, and others are waiting outside. I am most afraid of being disturbed when I give the injection." "Don't dare, don't dare." Everyone waved their hands again and again, even their voices were lowered, only one person was pushed to keep up. "Brother Wei." Mo Chu watched the process from the sidelines, and he couldn't help asking with some curiosity, "Who is this old gentleman? You don't even know how he came to Qingnang Pharmacy?" Senior brother Wei looked over with a surprised look, but he explained, "He is the owner of Qingsang Pharmacy, and the master of the apprenticeship, Su Muon and Su Lao, who is known as the Magic Needle. Apprentices don't enter the teacher's door, only the disciples who are like him can be regarded as the Qingnang Pharmacy door. Wonderful hand needle." Makaiu's eyes flashed, "Master Qin, is also this old gentleman's apprentice?" "Of course." Senior brother Wei nodded, "Master received a total of 4 disciples. Uncle Master died of illness in his early years. Uncle 2 went to other places. Uncle Lei, Uncle 3, has now become a family and has his own house outside the city. Of course, Master Lei sometimes comes to the pharmacy for consultation. He is good at internal injuries and all kinds of fever, especially for internal injuries, even the master thinks he is inferior." "Oh! Don't ask for clarity," nodded and asked curiously, "So what is Master Qin good at? You have a lot of questions." Senior brother Wei frowned, faintly impatient, but still replied, "The master is good at trauma, fractures, acupuncture and moxibustion, especially the technique of acupuncture and moxibustion. He is also the heir to the pharmacy." "Heir? Do not ask for a moment, does Mr. Su have no descendants?" "Of course there is." Senior brother Wei raised his eyebrows and said, "Master is the only daughter of Shizu, so, what else do you want to ask?" "Don't ask for an awkward smile," and shook his head again and again, "No, please continue to explain medicinal materials. No wonder there are so many doctors in the pharmacy, only Master Qin lives here, who turned out to be his own." "Humph!" Senior brother Wei snorted softly and said, "Don't rush down to school, let me ask you, have you remembered the 2 medicinal materials just now?" "Remember?" Makaiu nodded. "He has a good memory, and even though the system in his mind is not yet useful, it is more than enough to be a memory. The properties of the medicinal materials are recorded on the light curtain, which can ensure that they will not be forgotten in a short time, and it is convenient to look through. Oh! Senior brother Wei glanced at him, and did not mean to verify, and again took out a medicinal material from his side. This substance is called rosin, also called white rosin. It tastes bitter, has a warm nature, and is mainly used for fistula, alopecia areata. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted again. Doctor! Doctor! Come and save people! This time, more people came, and many of them were covered in blood, either supported each other or were carried into the pharmacy. This group of people rushed into the pharmacy and stared at the few big men who had come before, all in a daze. Brother Chi! Dog! How will you be here? I just wanted to ask you this. Everyone looked at each other, and one person's thoughts turned quickly, and he immediately said angrily, "It must be the people from Haihutang who have officially attacked our Sifang faction. No wonder we have such a loud voice, but no one came to support us. What's going on with you?" Second brother was attacked and injured by the third gear of Haihutang. We rushed over to protect him desperately. Fuhi Street was also attacked by Haihutang, and their two stalls joined forces to kill the three leopards. A group of big guys shouted one after another, and many people screamed and wailed, making the scene chaotic for a while. Shut up! Old Han on the side could not help raising his hands, shouting to stop the anger of everyone, and said, "Do you want to heal your injuries? Cure, cure, of course cure. When Lao Tzu is cured, he will definitely make the people in Haihutang look good." Yap! A bunch of people nodded, but there were no fewer than 10 wounded in the field, and almost all of them were seriously injured. Chingsang Pharmacy is already short of people, and at this time, it is even more short-handed. In desperation, even Makayu, who didn't even recognize a few medicinal materials, rushed to make up the number. Take the golden sore medicine. Hurry up and cook these cloths. Boil big bone medicine, 7 stoves together, everyone will move me up. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, don't be idle. While seeing the sick, Old Han gave orders to go down. His own apprentices were busy dressing up the wounded with medicine. Not long after, the father and daughter of Master Qin, who had originally gone out, also inquired and rushed over and joined the ranks of saving people. Was so busy that it was so dark. At this time, most of the wounded have been placed in place, but there are still a few seriously injured who need to carry on the lights to fight at night. Don't ask. Qin Qingrong wiped the sweat from her face, and saw that Mo Chu's face turned pale, and she handed over a medicinal material. Hold, refreshing. As for rest, even Master Qin is busy. Is there any time for apprentices to rest? What's this? Mo Chu took it, and subconsciously put it in his mouth. It was something similar to tree bark, brown and a bit bitter in taste. Qin Qingrong took the opportunity to put down the things in his hands and explained, "Kang Xiang, a refreshing herbal medicine, can't be taken too much, otherwise it's easy to get dizzy. Your physique is not good, use it first." Yes. Mo Chu nodded. After a busy day, his muscles and bones aches all over, and his physique is not even as good as Qin Qingrong's daughter's. Fuhi Street, the ruined temple I was in was near that street. I wonder what the other beggars in the temple are like? Has been affected? He doesn't care about other people, but it's okay to have a relationship with one person, so he can't help but feel a little worried. Mo Chu's expression was suddenly taken aback as his mind turned. Then he subconsciously took the Kang Xiang in his mouth and licked it on his tongue. Is not an illusion. The halo of stars in the sea of consciousness was actually brighter than before. Although it was extremely faint, it did respond. I still don't know what it is for. The two rushed out of the ruined temple and kept out of Kaiza Street before they finally stopped and gasped for breath. Mo. Brother Mo. Suanlu hugged the package tightly, panting and looking at Mo Chiu, with a worried expression on his face. What? When did you get the disease? In this world, getting sick is not a trivial matter. Many families have collapsed because of someone getting sick. Even if they are in the pharmacy, it will be very troublesome. You lied to them. Mo Chiu shook his head, took out a piece of scent the size of a fingernail from his arms and stuffed it into his mouth. This thing is called Kang Xiang. After eating it, you will get ringworm on your body. Ah! Suan Liuyi looked nervous. Then you still eat? It's okay. Don't ask to wave his hand, because there is something in the mouth. The voice is a little fuzzy. I just put it in my mouth to refresh my mind. A small piece of words every day is not in the way. Although I don't know what it is for, the brighter the starlight in the sea of knowledge, it should be good for him. Oh! Suan Lu could understand and understand. Thinking of what happened just now, he was a little worried when he was afraid. The temple is occupied by the people of Hai Hutang. I don't know how Guzi and Xiaoko are now. Mo Chiu's face sank. They know that we are in the Qingsang pharmacy. It stands to reason that if there is nowhere to go, they should look for us. Now. He wanted to stop talking, and shook his head slightly. This world is not peaceful. There are gangs fighting in the city, and bandits and robbers are running around outside the city. Two weak and helpless little beggars are afraid that they will not support them when they encounter a storm. Looked around right now, and said, ask the neighborhood nearby to see if you know the situation. Yet, Suan Liuliu had no master and had no idea, but he asked to do what he did. He immediately asked for the news separately. After a short while, the two got together again. 5 days ago, the people from Hai Hutang occupied the ruined temple and drove everyone out. Someone saw it, and there was a beggar who was covered in blood and didn't know life or death. It may not be the two of them. I heard that someone came over and bought a beggar. Maybe they were all right. The two spoke for a while, and both fell silent. Guzi is a person who is not worried. He is born to stutter, and he took good care of him when he first came to this world. Xiao Chu is a girl with a foot, and Suanlu is a hometown, and the relationship between the four is relatively good. Forget it. Mo Chu sighed and patted Suanliu's shoulders. Individuals have their own fate. They know that we are in the Qingsang pharmacy. If nothing is stable, they will definitely come to us. Let's go back. Suanlu opened his mouth, bowed his head silently. Back to the pharmacy. It was still early to the hour. The 6 pharmacies on the upper and lower floors were the largest shops on the street. Far away, you can smell the strong fragrance of medicine. The signboard of Qingsang Pharmacy is even more eye-catching, with the doctor's name engraved on both sides of the pharmacy. I hope people in the world live a long time, and don't hesitate to put medicine on the shelf. Mo Chiu stood at the front entrance of the pharmacy, stared at it for a long time, then regained his senses and walked into it with a sigh. I'm back. Master Qin was sitting inside, and seeing Mo seeking to enter, he immediately beckoned, come here and meet your younger brother. Yes. Mo Chiu hurriedly responded, looking at a boy in his early 10 years beside Master Qin. The child is different from the skinny and yellow one. He is carved in jade and is cute, and his clothes are neat and tidy. Is not very old, but slightly taller than Makayu. Master Qin pointed his finger at him and said, he is called Cheng Xiao, and he will follow his medical studies in the future to get acquainted with him. Mr. Cheng. Mo Chiu nodded, my name is Mo Chiu. I came here not long before you. I will show you more in the future. Cheng Xiao was obviously a kid in the city who had just left his home. He was far inferior to being proficient in human relationships. He blinked and didn't know what to answer. He only grinned to show kindness. Yet, Master Qin didn't mind, saying, when you are busy in Wei and in the future, as a senior, you are very old, so teach him more. Correct. His voice paused slightly, and he looked at Mochu. How are you learning recently? How much do you know about the medicinal materials in the shop? Have you understood the properties and handling of the medicine? I have written down what Brother Wei taught. Makayu's eyes flashed and said, the medicinal materials in the drugstore have been remembered 7 or 8, and the properties and handling of the medicinal materials are also clear. Hey! Master Qin frowned, unhappy. Don't speak big words. How long have you been here? The medicinal materials in the pharmacy are only the most common and there are hundreds of them. How many can you remember? He just asked casually, asking about the progress, but he didn't want the apprentice to say such a big talk. Back then, he was familiar with medicinal materials but used it for a few months. Go back to Master Qin. Don't ask for a serious look, arching his hands. I have indeed written down a lot. Is not in line with his temperament. But today's events irritated Makayu, making him realize that blindly hiding is not a good choice. Sometimes, you should show your abilities so that you can gain a firm foothold as soon as possible. Really? Even though he looked serious, Master Qin was still skeptical and immediately said, then I will ask you, what have you learned about Lengmuku? Makayu almost didn't think about it at all, saying, Lengmuku, commonly known as resorpania, is used as medicine. It tastes bitter, pungent, has a mild nature, has functions of dispelling wind and collaterals, dissipating blood stasis and relieving pain, and is mainly used to treat bruises. The treatment method is to dry it for fresh use. Sometimes it will need to be fired. Put it in the third medicine bucket. Hey! Master Qin raised his eyebrows, with a solemn expression on his face, and asked again, Ding Gong Teng. Ding Gong Ten, commonly known as spicy pain, the rhizome is used as medicine, it tastes spicy, warm in nature, and functions to reduce swelling and pain. It is mostly used for rheumatic arthralgia, hemiplegia, falling swelling and pain. Do not ask, the method of processing is to remove impurities, wash, moisturize, slice, dry, and then either directly apply medicine or grind into powder. Put it in the 7th medicine bucket in Ding Pai. White flower snake. This time, it is a relatively seldom used medicinal material. But Mo Chu only thought a little, and he answered, white snake, warm in nature, return to the liver meridian, sweet and salty, can dispel rheumatism, penetrate muscles and bones, and calm convulsions. Indications of rheumatism, paralysis, joint pain, leprosy. The method of concoction is to dry and fire, calcinate, fry, simmer, put it in the Genjiu medicine bucket. Bonixin. White flower gentiana. Situ. Master Qin asked, not asking for an answer. The two asked and answered in the corner of the pharmacy. Mo Chu hesitated until he asked a few rare things and couldn't answer. For a long time. Under the envied gaze of the boy Cheng Shao, Master Qin at UU reading www.uukavenchu.com finally stopped questioning, and the corner returned to quiet. Not bad. Master Qin nodded slightly while looking at Mo Chu, his eyes were slightly complicated, as if surprised, doubtful, and a little envy. Tracked him inside, got up and stood up, follow me. Yes. Not asking for it, hurriedly followed. The three of them entered the backyard. Master Qin asked them to wait in the back hall, and then went back to the room. Not long after, he returned with a book. Since the foundation is almost the same, let's start learning something else. He handed the booklet to Mo Chu, and said, this treasure medicine and traumatology involves injuries from injuries, bleeding from swords and guns, and some ointment methods. You should look at it first. If you don't understand something, just ask Weian, don't memorize or endorse it, watch the master's way more and learn how to use it. Yes. Makayu took the booklet, and hurriedly responded. Everyone else in the room has fallen asleep, but Makayu is full of mind and body, unable to sleep for a while. Worries about dogs, Zyoku, confusion about the future, and ignorance of the world. Finally, who couldn't sleep, he simply closed his eyes, and his consciousness sank on the dark star sea. System. Hey! The light curtain lights up. As Mo Chu's mind turned, square Chinese characters appeared on the light curtain. Is the treasure medicine traumatology? When couldn't remember, he opened his eyes and looked at the moonlight again, and finally recorded the whole book on the light curtain. Next moment, Mo Chu suddenly opened his eyes bursting with unquenchable ecstasy and excitement. Suppressed his excitement, Mikhail closed his eyes again, and his consciousness sank into the sea of knowledge. In the knowledge of the sea, there are more than 1,000 words treasure medicine and traumatology on the light curtain. And the dim sea of stars flickered slightly. An instinctive rhythm, urging him to do something, like a switch. One tap, the system will turn on. My heart beats faster, my mouth is dry, I don't want my throat to roll, I just follow the feeling and move gently. Also means pressing a switch. Hey! In the sea of knowledge, the halo is bright. The dim starlight suddenly bloomed with strange brilliance, and instantly rolled the curtain of light into the star sea. Immediately afterwards, the starlight dimmed rapidly. Seemed to be consuming something, an idea that didn't know where it came from, quietly appeared in Mikhail's consciousness. Treasure medicine and traumatology, dozens of cases, hundreds of methods for diagnosis and treatment, and more than a dozen ointments including gold sore medicine. Is clear, without any omissions, and the feeling of being immersed in this way for many years suddenly came to mind. With the thought, the experience of judging bruising from swords and guns, etc., emerged one by one. Hey! Mo Chu opened his eyes suddenly. His eyes are full of ecstasy, and his hands are desperately clenched before he suppresses the desire to scream. This system can actually help him understand the medical classics, and in an instant let Mo Chu master all of the treasure medicine and traumatology. Is almost equivalent to saving years of work. Don't ask for eyes flashing. Is not just an insight. Looking back now, some of the descriptions of Beiyao Department of Traumatology are not detailed. But I can distinguish clearly. Is like Shifeng Liki decoction and Tong Gluo Huoxiu decoction. There are flaws in the book, and it is easy to make mistakes according to prescriptions. This time through the system's perception, the flaws are eliminated, which is equivalent to strengthening the medical skills. There are several other places, which give more clever diagnosis and treatment methods. Mo Chu turned over on the bed, and it took a long time to suppress the ups and downs of distracting thoughts, and said in his heart, in other words, this system not only helps me save time in understanding medical books, but also strengthens the medical theory. I don't know, is this function only useful for medical books and medicine, or is it also useful for other books? In addition, the performance of this function is not without cost, but consumes the light of the stars in the sea of consciousness. At this time, the many dim stars in the sea of Mo Kaihuzi were completely gone and completely dark. The light curtain still comes out on the fly, but it's useless except for a short-term storage function. His heart was fluctuating, he couldn't sleep, and he rolled back and forth on the bed until the abnormal noise made Sun Lu mutter next to him, and he was completely honest. But the spirit is still high. Until dawn, it seemed like sleeplessness for a while. When the loud voice of Lu Du in the nursing home rang, Mo Chu got up from the bed again and hurriedly dressed and rushed out of the bedroom. After thinking about it all night, there are many places waiting for him to verify. First of all, is the insight that the system brings to oneself, is it true or not? This is easy to prove. Mo Chu made a few turns in the lobby and compared a few common prescriptions, and it was confirmed. Is indeed true. But there is a small problem. That is, although he understands the principles of medicine and knows how to use medicine, he is extremely jerky in practical use. What kind of medicine does anyone use? How much do men, women, the elderly, and children take each. How to match is suitable, especially for bone injuries. Sometimes it is necessary to sculpt the injured person's bones. How much effort should I use? Although I have all these in my sentiment, I really want to try to get started, and Mikhail fell into hesitation again. It's like he is a top theorist, but in practical application, he doesn't know the specific outline. Hey! Putting down the prescription in his hand, don't ask for a flash of eyes, and quickly changed his mind. Theory and practice are indispensable, otherwise it will be a simple talk and will not become a real doctor. But with the theory, it is equivalent to a high-rise building, and the following practice will make rapid progress. It is normal to learn from one another. Then, next is. Mo Chiu took out a small piece of kangxiang and held it in his mouth solemnly. The cold, bitter sensation floods the taste buds. Closing his eyes, a faint gleam of light appeared in the pitch-black sea of stars. With the passage of time, the light is slowly increasing, but the speed is so slow that it can be pointed. Opened his eyes, don't ask for a wry smile. This kind of speed is almost desperate. If you want to restore the brightness of last night, I am afraid that it needs to be measured in months. This is still on the basis of taking herbal medicine. Actually, the time he holds kangxiang every day, at most 1 hour, any more will hurt his body. Since the starlight can't afford it, naturally it can't continue to verify. For example, can the system be used to comprehend martial arts? Or comprehend calligraphy, writing? Is the starlight consumed by different things the same? How to divide the number of different words? Don't ask. The crisp and hearty voice interrupted his thoughts. The neat Qin Qingrong stretched out her hand and pointed upwards and said, "Help me take down the honey-burning gishan and attracta loads, and I will use it later." Okay. Mikhail nodded, and immediately pulled the wooden ladder and put it on the wall, stepping on to get the medicine. Honey-burning, gishan, beizu. He thought to turn, and secretly said, "It should be Yanjai Yuan Tang, I don't know if it is used to protect the heart or the liver. Heart protection should be matched with Shendi, Lily, Chuanlian, etc. Among them, Attracta Loads Macrocephalus requires $2, and $3 for return." He was thinking while taking medicine, but he didn't know that he was committing a taboo. Especially when he climbed high, his body was vacant, and he barely slept last night. He shook his body as soon as he pulled the medicine and became confused. Suffer. Mo Chiu was shocked, and he subconsciously pulled the medicine cabinet beside him, but didn't want to make a mistake in his busy schedule to tear down a few medicine buckets again. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Wow! But after listening to the chaotic sound, the medicine bucket, the herbal medicine and Mo Chiu fell from above at the same time. Carefully. Qin Qingrong, who weighed the medicinal materials, drank it softly, and his figure was already coming over. But when she saw her making a sword with her bare hands, she picked it up, lifted it, and then flipped it gently. It turned out that she caught several medicine buckets and Mo Kaiuzhi firmly at the same time. Only a few herbs are scattered outside. Are you okay? It's okay, it's okay. Mo Chiu waved his hand again and again, squatting on the ground in a hurry to sort out the herbs. Fortunately, Qin Qingrong is here. If he changes to senior brother Wei, he will make such a mistake, I am afraid that he will inevitably curse. Be careful. Qin Qingrong rolled her eyes, and helped squat down to examine the medicine, and said at the same time, "You are too weak, you are too weak." Mo Chiu smiled awkwardly, paused, and asked curiously, "Sister, did you was martial arts?" Yet. Qin Qingrong collected the herbs, slapped her hands and straightened up, with a slightly bold voice, "The shadow sword I practiced was taught by my grandfather and father. Otherwise, do you think that Qingsang Pharmacy can gain a foothold here only by medical skills?" Shadow sword. Mo Chiu's eyes lit up. Don't think so much. Qin Qingrong knew what Makayu meant, and said, apprentices cannot learn. But if you can go to school like Brother Wei and formally worship your father, you can also learn. So. She took a step forward, patted Makayu on her shoulders old-fashionedly, and said, let's study medicine hard. Don't beg to nod. Time flies. Unknowingly, 4 months have passed quietly. Now late autumn has passed, and the chill is invading. The first snow is not big and not dense, falling with the wind like catkins, which attracted many children on the street to cheer. Do not beg to reach out to catch a piece of snowflakes, watch it melt in the palm of his hand, then retract his hand and look back. Upon closer inspection, his hands are a little red and swollen. This is frostbite. Although it is not serious, the effect is not small. Especially at night, pain, itching, and even more torture, there is no good way. Sighed, he turned around slowly. The doctor at the pharmacy today is Master He, a middle-aged man dressed as a literati with a 3-inch beard. Master He likes to be quiet, and he is lying on the recliner with his eyes squinted, half asleep, half awake and half confused. Several guys sorted out the medicinal materials. Cheng Xiao and the new apprentice Cai Rui are grabbing medicine, acting cautiously, lest they disturb Master He. Brother Mo. When taking the same medicinal material, there was a dispute between the two, and they immediately turned to Mo Chiu. Cheng Xiao said, come and see, should the poria in this recipe be 3 coins or 7 coins? Oh, let me see. Mo Chiu rubbed his hands, wiped away the chill, and paced up to the two of them. Glanced at his eyes, and he recognized that this was a prescription for the loss of kidney yin. Some parts of the prescription were wet with water, and most of it did not affect, but the dosage behind fulling was very vague. Is like 7 coins, and a little like 3 coins. The key is that Cheng Xiao thinks this recipe is very familiar. When I used to take it, I used 2 yuan and 3 yuan, and the maximum was 5 yuan, and there was never 7 yuan. But Cai Rui insisted that he saw Brother Wei write 7 coins, and the two couldn't help but argue. The so-called one law is universal, and this principle is equally applicable to medical skills. Thanks to the system, Mo Chiu's understanding of treasure medicine and traumatology is already at a master level. Now stretched out his hand and said slowly, this is Anyang Dingzi recipe. It contains Chinese yam, tree peony peel, depending on the dosage, it is definitely for women. So this fulling should be 3 coins. In addition, even if it is for men, unless it is a very burly man, otherwise it will not cost $7. Falling uses $7, and the weight of other medicinal materials will not be so small. This will cause an imbalance in the efficacy of the medicine. If it fails to save people, it will hurt the body. He explained very detailed and easy to understand. Cheng Xiao nodded repeatedly while Cai Rui frowned. But he still insisted, I saw that Brother Wei wrote 7 coins. Do not ask to shake his head gently. He naturally saw that it was actually 7 coins, but that didn't mean that the prescription was right. What's the matter? As he spoke, Senior Brother Wei, who looked gloomy and slightly hunched, turned around from behind. He glanced at the 3 of them, their expressions darkened, and whispered, if you don't take medicine well, why is it noisy? I don't know that Master He likes to be disturbed the most. Brother. Cheng Xiao hurriedly said, we came from behind just now, the prescription was covered with snow, and some areas on it were blurred. He reached out his hand and pointed to the prescription, and said, I said fulling should get 3 coins, but the younger brother said it was 7 coins. Brother Mo also said it was 3 coins. Said, he repeated Mo Chiu's words and made a grimace at Cai Rui on the side. Oh! Brother Wei originally planned to scold him, frowned upon hearing this, and took a step forward to check the pharmacy again. Her complexion immediately became a little ugly. He naturally knew that Mo Chiu was right. It was because he was confused for a while and even used too much. This is the prescription that the Master King of the city used for his concubine. If something goes wrong, it will be troublesome. After a sigh of relief, an inexplicable irritation appeared in his heart, and the look in the three of them was even more unkind. How did you follow along in these 2 months? Senior brother Wei glared at Cai Rui and shouted, don't even know Anyang Ding's Haifang. Fortunately, your brother-in-law told me how smart you are, so it's better to go back early if you don't do anything like this. Cai Rui trembles when he hears it. He is only a child in his early 10 years, and it is the first time he has left his parents. How much he has suffered such grievances. Immediately reddened his eyes and sobbed softly with his head down. Cry, you know to cry. Senior brother Wei was even more angry when he saw this. Here, it is normal for the master to beat the apprentice and the brother to teach the apprentice. The person who was beaten must not only have no complaints, but also be grateful for the teachings of the other party, otherwise they would not understand the respect for the teacher. I have to say, this is a bit unreasonable. Brother. Mo Chu stretched out his hand to stop him, and at the same time he winked at Master He who was not far away. Master He is asleep, don't disturb his old man. Besides, junior brother Cai was also wrong for a while. Fortunately, nothing went wrong. You have a large number of adults. Don't be familiar with him. Hey! Senior brother Wei snorted, looking back, he happened to see Master He sideways on the recliner. Slammed his hand away at the moment, glaring at Cai Rui angrily, next time, just get out. Then looked at Mo Chu with a sullen face, and hummed softly, Junior brother Mo, you learn very quickly, I'm afraid it won't take long to get out of the teacher. Don't dare. Makaiu's face changed slightly, and he hurriedly lowered his head, whispering, it's all taught by my seniors. Teach a fart. In the past few months, except for Master Qin who talks about medical treatment and medication from time to time, Weian has only regarded him as a man. The man still has wages anyway, and when he gets here, not only does he have no wages, but also always be careful. If Makaiu has a lifetime experience, I'm afraid I don't know how many times I have been trained by the other party. Yet. Senior brother Wei nodded, barely suppressing the anger in his heart, and said, you tidy up, and you will come with me out of town later. Out of the city. Mo Chu raised his head, eyes surprised, this time. I am out of the city at this hour, I'm afraid it's a question of whether I can come back before the city gate is closed. It's now. Senior brother Wei frowned, also displeased. Master's son outside the city accidentally rolled down from the attic, he was scratched by iron, and he was inconvenient to move. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com asked us to rush over. Don't talk nonsense, go and pack things. Yes. Don't ask for it in a hurry. Master's son is an herbal medicine dealer and a major patron of a pharmacy. If something happens, he can't delay him. After finishing a little bit, the two got into the son's carriage and drove out of the city under the skill of the coachman. Senior brother Wei got into the sedan, Mo Chu crouched and sat on the frame with the driver on the left and right. He wears a grey cloth winter coat, a hat on his head, and a small body curled up to avoid the cold wind as much as possible. A few months have passed, although the days in the pharmacy are not pleasant, but after eating and drinking enough, my skin color is no longer as pale as before. The thin body has more fleshy bones and red light on the surface. Even the height has increased slightly. Certainly. For him, the most important thing is to know the stars in the sea, which once again flashed a dim halo. And it's not worse than before. The progress is gratifying. After several attempts, Mo Chu has verified that the brightness of the star's halo is related to his own spirit. Lost energy, progress will be slow, but it will not be weakened. On the contrary, it will progress faster. In the past few months, he has eaten and drank enough, his body is strong, and he is full of energy. In addition to Kangxiang, he found a few herbs that can replenish his spirits, and only then has the progress made today. Squinted, watching the grey courtyard walls and houses flashing by on both sides, Mo Chu sighed in his heart and shrank again. An hour later, Sun's house outside the city has arrived. At the door, the two servants were already waiting anxiously, but their expressions made Mo Chu frown. This is fear? Before the carriage stopped steadily, the people in the Sun's house who were guarding the door hurried over. But the gentleman from Chingsang Pharmacy. One person took the reins and stopped the carriage, looking at Mo Chu. Hurry up, please come into the house. My master is seriously injured, but there must be no accident. While speaking, his face was full of anxiety. Yet, Mo Chu nodded, got up and got out of the carriage, and took the medicine box from Brother Wei. He has weak bones, and the medicine box is extremely heavy. He snorted and put it on his shoulder. Senior Brother Wei stepped out of the carriage with a yawn, and the oncoming coldness made him shrink. Looking at the two anxious offenders, he rubbed his hands and jumped out of the carriage, saying, "What's the matter? Where did it hurt?" "This." The next person hesitated a little, stretched out his hand and said forward, "We are not very clear, the husband will be admitted to the hospital soon, the master and the wife are waiting in the backyard." "Okay." Senior Brother Wei raised his mind, and strode towards the front courtyard with his hands on his back. Sun's house is located in Horihara village in the south of the city. Master Sun is also the largest wealthy household in Zhuangzi. As soon as he enters the door, he first enters the goal is a huge entrance wall with lifelike flowers blooming on it. Just blood. Mo Chu glanced at the peony petals, the dull blood on it was extremely dazzling. "Oh!" The servant hurriedly explained, "Today, a sheep was killed in the house, and a sheep ran out from behind with a breath, splashed with blood." "Kill the sheep." Senior Brother Wei's throat rolled and said, "Why, is there a happy event in your house today? Lamb is not cheap, even the rich and the rich will not eat it every day. Hi, can be regarded as a happy event." The smile on the face seemed reluctant, and he lowered his head and said, "A few guests came, the master called for a hospitality." Tisk tisk. Senior Brother Wei shook his head slightly, "It's really unfortunate that Master Sun was unfortunately injured when the guests came." "Yes, yes." The servant nodded repeatedly, and stretched out his hand, "The two of you go here." At the same time, he glared at the people around him, and said, "Second tiger, don't stand stupidly, help the little master hold the medicine box." "No." Brother Wei waved his hand, "Let him carry it on his own. If he is so weak, he should practice more, so that he can go a long way in the future." Do not ask for an awkward smile, nodded, and glanced around, there was a little curiousness in his eyes. "This yard is so big, why didn't I see a few people along the way?" Although was puzzled in his heart, he had no plans to find the root cause, so he crossed the two into the backyard. "There are many people waiting here." "Master, Madam." The servant hurriedly greeted one of the men and the woman, saying, "The doctor from Chingsang Pharmacy is here." "Okay, okay." A middle-aged man with a rich face nodded again, and hurriedly stretched out his hand to lead back, "Two of you, please come in." "Master Sun, what's going on?" Senior Brother Wei looked at him with a look of surprise, "Doesn't you seem to have injuries on your body?" Mo Chu was also surprised, "This is Master Sun? Didn't you say that you fell from the attic and was injured by iron tools? It seems that everything is normal except for a pale face." It's not me." Master Sun shook his head anxiously, "It's someone else who gets hurt." "Who?" "It's our second brother." A cold and dull voice sounded from behind Master Sunday. As soon as this person's voice came out, there was a moment of silence in the scene, and everyone in the Sun house bowed their heads honestly. There are a few people, and their bodies are trembling, their faces can't be suppressed in terror. Pushing Master Sun away, he strode to Senior Brother Wei, his burly figure resembling a giant bear. I'm afraid that even the Lutu of the pharmacy is inferior to it. From the pharmacy, the visitor scanned the two of them, and finally landed on the medicine box that Mo Chu was carrying, and then nodded, "Come in with me." "Hey!" Senior Brother Wei was taken aback. "Huh, what?" The face sank, and as soon as he stretched out his big hand, he grabbed Senior Brother Wei and carried him towards the inner hall. "Hurry up and give my second brother a diagnosis and treatment, if it can't be cured." "Humph!" He snorted coldly and threw the person into the house with a flick of his hand. 100 jins of people are like straws pierced in his hands, and they are thrown far away at will. Do not beg to see the other person looking back, his body trembled, and he didn't dare to delay, hurriedly trod in and followed. This should be the master's bedroom. In addition to the patient lying on the bed, there are 4 people in the room, both tall and short, all with strong breath. And there are swords and weapons on them diagonally, plus the blood that hasn't dried up on them. Seeing it is not good. Who is he? One of them was about 30 or 40 years old, dressed in a Confucian shirt, and his eyes were extremely sharp. Looked at Brother Wei, his eyes sank. "Didn't you ask the doctor from Qingsang Pharmacy to come over?" "Brother." The big man at the door stretched out his hand and pointed at Brother Wei, muttering, "He is the one." "Fart!" The man in Russian shouted angrily, "How can some of the doctors there be so young? Is it possible that the fat man surnamed Sun deceived me?" "What?" The big man instantly showed a hideous face, grabbed the cooked copper stick by the door, and glared at Brother Wei, "Are you a fake? These people are too powerful, don't ask the two of them as if they are in a pack of tigers and wolves." Seeing that the big man was about to kill with a club, Senior Brother Wei, who was paralyzed on the ground, trembled and said anxiously, "I'm the doctor of Qingsang Pharmacy. My master is Master Qin. Today, because several masters didn't have time, I asked me to come over. If you don't believe me, you can ask Master Sun, he can testify." His voice was hurried, and his speaking speed was surprisingly fast. He almost spit out the words in one breath, lest he didn't have a chance to say more. "Fuck your mother's dog ass!" The big man roared, "You are a group, of course you will not deny each other, you want to lie to me, no way. Enough." You reading www.yunsha.com. The man in Confucian shirt frowned, waved his hand to stop the man's movements, and looked down at Brother Wei, "Are you really a doctor at Qingsang Pharmacy?" "It's true." Senior Brother Wei nodded anxiously, and even raised his right hand high, saying loudly, "I swear, if I lie to you, I will thunder, and I will not die." Yet, the man in Russian looked slightly calm, nodded, and reached out his hand to the person on the bed, "My brother, he was murdered with a bow and arrow. You can cure him. Don't worry." He leaned forward, looking straight at Brother Wei with a solemn expression, "Our brothers have clear grievances. If you save my brother, then he will be our benefactor. Consultation fee, easy to say. But if..." S words fell, his face sank, and the hard slate ground under his feet was already cracked and cracked. This force is not enough for ordinary people to hit with a hammer. Brother Wei paled, and nodded anxiously, "Sure. That's good." As soon as the man in the Confucian shirt took off his imposing manner, he stretched out his hand to signal, "Doctor, please." Senior Brother Wei stood up tremblingly, and came to the bed trembling, only to glance at his face. His face was pale. I saw that the patient on the bed was unconscious, pale, and dry lips. 2 long arrows with barbs pierced through the chest from behind, his body was full of blood, and his clothes were dark red. This kind of injury. His heart is bitter, and with a little hope, he gently presses the pulse of the wounded, his heart beats slightly. "What's the matter?" The man in Russian is very good at his words and expressions. Although Brother Wei hasn't spoken yet, he already sinks his face, "You can't treat this kind of injury. Senior brother Wei shuddered when he heard the words, and turned around trembling, lowering his head and daring not to look at each other. Strong man. Because of fear, his voice stammered. This giant Tai's abdomen was pierced by an arrow, hurting, injured the internal organs. Ordinary medicine is fundamental. Snapped. Before he could finish his words, he was slammed on his cheek, and he fell to the ground heavily. It was only a moment, his profile puffed up, his speech was bloody, and his voice was indistinguishable. Fuck you. Although the man was dressed in a Confucian shirt, he was irritated but without elegance at all. He kicked it hard, in other words, you can't cure it. Waste. Don't. Brother Wei put his hands in front of him. Although he stopped the kicking motion, he couldn't bear the power. Then the whole person rolled backwards, knocking down the table, and I don't know how many injuries were on the body. The strong man, please take your life. Seeing the man in the Confucian shirt jumped over again, senior brother Wei hurriedly yelled, although I can't cure it, I know who can cure it. Who can cure it? The man in Russian glared his eyes, grabbed his hair with his big hand, and lifted him up. Say it. My master. Senior brother Wei said with blood in his mouth and his speech was unclear, his injury is very serious. Only my master and master can treat the entire county. You let me go, I will take you to the city. Snapped. Before he finished his words, he slapped and slapped again, and the other half of his face also bulged. The man in the Confucian shirt looked sullen and said, if we can get into the city, do we still need to turn around and let you come here? And he bit his teeth and showed his murderous intent, I really don't know anything. My brother can't stand the bumps at all now. As people who are on the verge of life and death all year round, how can they lack the common sense of first aid? Strong man. Brother Wei was full of horror in his eyes, and said in a vague voice, you can't enter the city, but you can let my master come over, and I will go back and ask him to come for treatment. Said, grabbing the other's sleeves with both hands, and said anxiously, if you let me go, I will definitely bring my master. Just like you. The Russian man sneered disdainfully, I also brought your master here, I'm afraid that I would be thankful if I didn't bring us the Yamen officials. Big brother. The big man holding a cooked copper stick at the door widened his eyes and said, what should we do now? What should I do? The man in Russian gritted his teeth, go, kill 2 people from the son's house, and tell the grandfather's son that I will see this guy's master within 2 hours. If you want to bring back a waste like this time. Humph. He snorted angrily, and slammed down with one hand, and he knocked senior brother Wei to the ground again. The strength is so great that only after hearing a click, the leg bones have broken directly. What? Senior brother Wei screamed loudly, sweating on his forehead, and his body trembled crazily while holding his right leg with both hands. Big brother. One person in the field was dressed in black, with a thin body and playing with a sharp dagger. He swept across the field coldly, his scarlet tongue licked his dagger, yin, in other words, these 2 people are useless. Lao San, now is not the time to have fun. The man in Russian frowned and said, kill directly, give them a good time. It's boring. The old third pouted his lips, but seeing the man in Russian with a cold face, he had to step forward, if you are lucky, the boss is not interested in having fun, this time I will give you a good time. No. No. Senior brother Wei trembled, his eyes were full of horror, and he shook his head frantically, don't kill me, don't kill me. I have money. I will see a doctor. I can't die. I will do whatever you ask me to do, please, don't kill me, don't kill me. He knelt down and pleaded bitterly, his face was even more snotty, but in exchange for the other party's sneer. We asked you to save people, but unfortunately you can't. The youngest shook his head slightly, shaking his fingers, and the dagger jumped back and forth between his palms. He leaned forward and said in a low voice, in the next life you have a better memory, and you must learn medicine well, otherwise you won't die. Talking, patted senior brother Wei on the head and looked at Mo Chu with a smile. He seems to like to look at other people's horrified expressions, but he is not in a hurry to kill people. At least, you can kill another one first. And at this moment, Mo Chu, when he encountered this situation for the first time, was pale and trembling, and could not speak at all. Seeing the cruel face of the third child stepping forward, he stiffened, forcibly suppressed the fear in his heart, and tremblingly raised his right hand. What are you? The third child stretched out his hand and swiped, not to feel the coldness of his wrist, and the short sleeves were already floating gently. The chill of the dagger made him feel goosebumps instantly. A cold feeling suddenly surged from the tail vertebra, rushing to the back of his head, and Mo Chu's voice was raised. I can cure it. What? The old third was taken aback. What did you say? The man in Rushan also changed his eyes, looking sideways, his voice was full of suspiciousness. You said my brother's injury, can you cure it? Boss, this is simply impossible. The youngest man came back to his senses and shook his head freely. This little guy looks like an apprentice in the pharmacy. What can he do for injuries that the master can't heal? Am I right? The last sentence was spoken to Brother Wei on the ground. Senior Brother Wei opened his mouth. He hoped it was true, but he knew it was impossible. Look. The old third shrugged, this little guy just doesn't want to die, and bluffs people, but I don't know that I hate this kind of not keeping the door. Said, I'm going to move forward. I can really cure it. Don't ask for a tremor, and hurriedly said, he hurt his internal organs and bleeds too much. Now it is too late to go to the city to find a doctor. Leave it to me, he may still be saved. To call someone is a dead end. Hey! The man in Rushan's complexion darkened, but his eyes flickered, as if hesitated. Boss! The third child was stunned, you won't believe him, would you? This guy is so old, the second brother's injury can only be cured by a doctor who is proficient in trauma. I am. Opened his mouth, Mikhail's nervousness was also slightly eased, and hurriedly said, I don't understand anything else, but I am very good at treating bleeding and arrow injuries. You believe me, I can really cure it. Smelly boy. The third child frowned and moved closer, to make fun of this and other things. I think you are living impatiently. Old third. The man in Rushan suddenly stretched out his hand and said, let him try. Big brother. The old third was taken aback, and everyone else in the field was surprised. Obviously no one believed what Mikhail said. Even senior brother Wei has a look of despair. The second child's injury can't afford it. The man in Rushan looked serious, and shook his head slightly under everyone's gaze, like what he said just now, it's too late to call people, only, fight. But... someone questioned. Boy! The man in the Confucian shirt waved his hand, interrupting his companion's conversation, and looked directly at Mikhail with cold eyes, cure my brother's injury, everything is easy to say, but if you lie. At this point, he gritted his teeth and his face was grim, I will make you regret coming to this world. No, it won't. Don't ask for a picky mentality, but on the face forcibly calm, he took off the medicine box on his shoulders with both hands disobedient. Immediately settled down, and then went to the bed. While Brother Wei inspected his injuries, he followed him, and he knew the other party's injuries in his heart. Immediately checked again, and secretly said in his heart, looking at this person's injury, reading www.yunsha.com was pierced by a bow and arrow, but for some reason, he continued to exert force without first controlling the injury, causing the wound to become larger, losing too much blood and eventually falling into a coma. Stop bleeding first. Their hemostasis is so bad that they will kill people when they draw an arrow. Then stop the injury, restore the circulation of qi and blood, and slowly draw out the bow and arrow without enlarging the wound. Finally stimulate the vitality of the body with drugs. As he muttered in his heart, his hands were already busy. Several months of assisted Hansen experience, so that he no longer has any discomfort in the face of blood. After a short while, all kinds of methods have been used together, and the techniques and movements have become more and more skillful. It is not like an apprentice who is treating someone for the first time. Zhigzu-san, pressing at 6 designated points, cutting arrow feathers, melting pills. Help me heat up this ointment. These powders are mixed with warm water, and the patient can't speak when they are taken afterwards. Use hollow grass stems to send them into the stomach little by little. After an explanation, it was methodical, and the fear in my heart disappeared without knowing when. Such a change in him made several people in the field look at each other with suspicious eyes. As time passed, until the 2 blood-stained arrows were slowly pulled out, their expressions had begun to become a little excited. The man in the Confucian shirt clenched his fists, his blue veins and bulging drums. Hey! Is success or failure? Just look at the last step, don't ask for a deep breath, wipe the sweat from your face, and slowly stretch out your hand. Invigorating blood and shocking the body and finger pressing technique. Press the acupuncture points on the top of the head with one hand and press back and forth on the heart with the other hand. The force becomes more and more urgent with time. Finally, the patient on the bed snorted and exhaled a long breath. The next day, the carriage swayed away from the son's house and turned back to the city. After the first snow, the road was slightly muddy, and the coachman had to shake his whip from time to time to stabilize the carriage. Do not ask for the same as when he came, sitting down on one side, with a large hat covering half of his body. Although it was the first real shot, fortunately, there was no error in the diagnosis and treatment process yesterday. The injured successfully awakened, and the injuries became more and more stable. But just in case, a few criminals still forcefully left 2 of them. After one night of observation, they finally confirmed that the brother's life was okay before letting them go. The man in the Russian shirt also kept his promise and gave a full amount of money for the consultation. At this time, the silver was held in Mochu's cold hands. The pharmacy master's monthly money is only 2 or 2 a month, and Brother Wei is even less than 1 or 2. 50 taels of silver, this is undoubtedly a huge sum of money for an apprentice who has not yet been given a teacher. But, thought his head turned, he gently lifted the curtain of the car to look at the trembling figure in the car. Said at the same time, "Brother, this consultation fee. Don't kill me. Don't kill me." Senior Brother Wei shuddered, immediately hugged his head with his hands, begging for mercy. Different from Mochu, he couldn't sleep peacefully at night. After being intimidated, beaten, and insulted by several criminals, his spirit has become apparently abnormal. Whenever I heard the slightest sound, I shivered with fright. Mochu helplessly shook his head, so he could only lower the curtain. According to the rules of the pharmacy, when going out for treatment, the doctor can split half of the consultation fee. Unfortunately, apprentices do not have this qualification. Originally, he planned to discuss with Senior Brother Wei to see if he could leave some silver as private money, but now it seems to be useless. As for secretly hiding, as long as you're still in the pharmacy in the future, it's better not to do this kind of thing. Creep, creep. The carriage reeled. Snapped. The whip rope rang crisply. Mochu shrank in the cold wind, feeling complicated about the process of his first treatment. There is contentment and surprise, but more of it is fear. What will happen if you fail to save people? The results speak for themselves. In this world, even if one possesses medical skills can be respected, but without force it is still a chopping board. Martial arts. Under the hat, his eyes flashed. Green capsule pharmacy. The chaotic noise lasted for a long time before finally calming down, and at the same time someone went to report to the official. The few people in Sunzai are not kind at first sight, maybe they are the criminals wanted by the yamen. In the back hall, Master Qin sat on the red sandalwood chair, frowning, and chatted with Master He on the side. I was shocked. I need to raise it slowly. Can it return to normal? It depends on luck. Maybe you can get through it, maybe that's it, maybe your personality will change drastically. Hey! The two sighed and shook their heads repeatedly. Do not seek to stand on the court, bow your head without saying a word. After some emotions, Master Qin looked down at him, with a slightly surprised look in his eyes. I heard the coachman say that you cured that person's injury. Yes. Mo Chu replied with his hands. I used the method of treating arrow cluster trauma as described in Treasure Medicine Traumatology. Oh. Master Qin touched his chin and said suspiciously, Wei-en from Treasure Medicine Traumatology has long been upside down, and he is helpless with injuries. Can you cure it? In the words, there is a hidden doubt. It's not that he doesn't want to believe it, but that what the coachman said is simply against common sense. The apprentice in front of him has only been in the pharmacy for a few months, and he is not even familiar with it. How could Wei-en's helpless injury be cured? This. Mikhail opened his mouth. I did act according to the medical book. This is strange. Master He smiled softly and said, let's just talk about it. What was it like at that time? Yes. Not asking for it, said, at that time, senior brother Wei and I arrived. The man had weak breath, weak pulse, and pale complexion. The body was pierced by 2 arrows, and then he fought with others, resulting in excessive blood loss and fainting. He explained the illness of the wounded one by one, and the expressions of the 2 of them gradually became serious, and their eyes fell into contemplation. It's really difficult. Master He put himself into it, but he had to admit that the situation was serious. He was in a different place, and he was not sure about it. Was a little curious in her heart, and said, tell me, how did you do it? Do not look at Master Qin. Say. Master Qin's voice sank. Treasure medicine and traumatology is not a unique secret recipe. If you can do it, you will have an extraordinary talent. Yes. Not asking for it, said, I think that person is in a serious condition, so I decided to combine treatment with hemostasis, solidification and stimulation of qi and blood. Among them are. The process is divided into 7 steps, first hemostasis, then fixation of acupuncture points, then consolidating the source, promoting blood circulation, finger pulse pressing. There are 5 kinds of drugs used together, respectively. Finally, luckily to rescue the man. His voice fell, but no one responded, but strangely silent. Master He looked in a daze and looked dazed. Naturally, he could hear that there is nothing wrong with Mikhail's method, and the medical theory is not complicated, even simple. But turn decay into magic. This sentence suddenly came to mind. If it wasn't for a young man in front of him, he would think that the other party was a master who had entered the realm of medicine. Simple medication, but the rhythm is controlled just right, and a little bit is brought back a seriously injured dead person. Hey! Master Qin let out a sullen breath, and the look in Mo Chu's eyes also showed a complex color. Have you never studied medicine before? No. Mo Chu shook his head. Even now, I haven't recognized all the medicinal materials in the pharmacy. This is the truth. There are more than 1,000 kinds of medicinal materials in the pharmacy. Yet. Master Qin nodded. Mikhail's medical skills were taught by him. At the beginning, it was natural to know what was going on, and it was impossible to deceive people. Congratulations, congratulations. Master He also came back to his senses, turned his side to Master Qin and smiled. Master Qin, you are a good disciple. There is someone in the Qingsang pharmacy. Congratulations. He's over, Master Qin. Master Qin shook his head, suppressing the smile that was approaching his lips, and said, it's just a little clever, it's not a big deal, but it's worth cultivation. Ha ha. Master He laughed, this is not just a cleverness, but a great root of wisdom. Maybe we can find a famous medical expert here in the future. You are getting more and more ridiculous. Master Qin was speechless. He is still young, so he is not worthy of praise, so as not to be arrogant in his heart, but he did a good job. You. Master, he pointed at the other person. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com now shook his head. Is this to treat him as a successor? But I am afraid that I need to ask Mr. Su for this matter. I wonder how seniors would comment. Yet. Master Qin looked straight. It's not too late, I'll go to see Master first. Don't ask. Exist. You go back and rest first, yes. Master Qin seemed to think of something, and took out a silver or two from his body. Hold it. Thank you, Master Qin. Mo Chu's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly caught it. Evening. Master Qin was drunk and flushed, and walked out of Su Lao's residence drunk. I looked up and saw Mikhail, who was busy not far away. The corner of his mouth grinned, and he beckoned. Don't ask. You, hiccup, come here. Yes. Mo Chu heard the answer, and ran over in a hurry. Come with me. Master Qin waved a big hand, staggered forward, and walked 3 steps into his house. Then followed behind me, ignoring his request, rummaging through the cabinets in the room, and finally took out a thick book. You hold this green sack medicine classic. Hey! Do not ask for a moment. As far as he knows, Qing Nang Yaojing is a treasure of the pharmacy, and only formal apprentices are qualified to watch it. Is qualified, it does not mean that you can watch it. Just like Brother Wei, he didn't seem to be able to read the whole book of medicine. Master Qin is drunk. I don't know what he said in Su Lao's house, how much wine he drank, and he was so excited. Actually took out the Qing Nang Yaojing. Don't ask for a short breath, and my heartbeat starts to speed up. Looking at Master Qin, he is already on the bed.